Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, where purpose driven entrepreneurs turn self sabotage into self compassion and rise into their power. I am your host, Lauren Perlingi, and I'm here to share real conversations and tools to help you create a life and business aligned with your soul. So let's dive in. And in today's episode, I have Sandra. She is a published author, founder of Rising Above Your Story, and creator of the Trauma Reiki Healing Method. Welcome, Sandra. I'm so happy to have you here with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to just dive right in, and I want to know who you are, a little bit about your story, and how you help people.
All right. Well, I'm Sandra Cooze, born and raised in Germany, and then love brought me to the beautiful province of Newfoundland. That's over 20 years ago. Um, well, I'm first and foremost a former trauma survivor. I was molested when I was 12. I was sexually harassed at 14. I was bullied in school between the age of 16 and 17. I was sexually assaulted multiple times between the age of 19 and 25, and I was raped at 22. Then, when I went to seek professional help because I didn't like the person I had become, I was dismissed with the words, I believe you already worked through it all. What am I supposed to do? So then I hit rock bottom. And the thing with rock bottom is you have two choices. You can either stay down there and keep falling further and further in this bottomless pit, or you climb back out. Now, I'm Leo, so I'm stubborn by default. And I was not willing to give up on life. And so I climbed out. I found my own way of healing, and I turned this into the most amazing profession for myself because I learned so much about trauma and what it really is, how spirituality fits into all of that because it plays a huge role. And with that, I designed a healing modality that helps my clients release even the most difficult trauma up to PTSD and start living their life on their own terms.
And I know that the listeners listening to this definitely can resonate with some parts or maybe all of your story. Like your journey, your living testimony is basically that healing is possible. Like at the end of the day,
Yes.
healing is possible. And I literally, you read my thought. I was like, I'm going to ask her what her zodiac sign. So you have to, and then you said Leo. I was like, okay, that makes sense. I'm an Aquarius. My son is Aquarius, so I love Leos. Like we're sister signs. It's like the complete opposite, but not at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. So, thank you for sharing your story. It's very vulnerable of you. I know that is like a past version of yourself. So just like me,
Yes.
very similar to me. It's like I very brief when I talk about it, but I can go in depth because I feel like there's listeners listening and they could just be starting their journey. They could be 5 years into it. They could be 2 hours into it. Like it's all different. Like we're all on different we're
Yes.
all on different paths, right? But I feel like just like reading who you are and knowing like who you are and what you just said, I really feel like you have a really powerful mission here, and especially we'll talk a little bit about your book later, but can you tell us a little bit more in depth about like what your program entails and like how it came about? I know it's from your story, but like what does it like what is it? How do you walk your clients through it? What would they experience? How would they feel going through this program?
Okay. Well, how it came about is when I started practicing Reiki. I've been a master since 2010,
Okay.
and I started slow with having clients and getting acquainted with using energy.
Yeah.
And always after the sessions, I sat down with my clients to make sure they're grounded and that everything is fine, no aches or pains. And they usually ask questions. And what they always did was they just opened up to me. They talked about their traumas and their issues. And I never asked, but they always felt safe to open up. And on some level, I always knew exactly what I needed to hear in order to shift out of this mindset. Well, back then I had no clue what I was doing was coaching, but it's basically what I did. And it was intuitive coaching because I channeled the answers they needed to hear. I still do this to this day, a little more, zoned in than back then, because now I understand what I'm doing. But there were a couple things that my clients said that got me to this point where I was like, something has to change. So, and a couple of my clients said, well, they triggered a therapist in their session and they had to help their therapist through their trigger in their own session. So then I said, well, if my therapist can't handle my story, how am I supposed to? Then others were dismissed by the therapist just like me without any other place to go, any other suggestions. We were just left hanging and had to figure this out on our own. Now, thanks to my stubbornness, I did figure it out, but there are so many people who just say, well, I can't be helped and this is my life now. And I thought this can't be it. There has to be a way to fully heal. And then I thought, wait a minute, I did that. So let's do something with this. The next day, Rise Above Your Story was born. And the day after that, I started writing my first book, Journey to Yourself, How to Heal from Trauma. And this was like the path that my business was taking. It was like baby steps, because I was still dealing with some level of trauma, especially like fear of being seen, fear of rejection, fear of ridicule, fear of being seen like a fraud. All those stages that business owners, especially spiritually grounded business owners, go through because we're opening up the world to new possibilities. And most people are so stuck in the 3D that I can't even resonate with this, that there's more out there that's outside this box that we were put in. So gradually my business changed and evolved. And at first it was just about trauma healing and coaching.
Mhm.
And then I always kept the question, okay, now what? We were stuck in an issue and we didn't find a root cause. So then I started to dabble a little bit more in the Akashic records and I designed the ancestral healing method, which means we're looking to the ancestral line and see what trauma is there that could possibly be holding you back. And there's so much there that is also from trauma that we carry down through the ancestral line or past lives or karma. All of that contributes to the trauma that we carry around with us. So over the years, what I designed was like a full circle trauma healing approach where I really look at everything, every little nook and cranny. I release the trauma, or my clients release it, I guide them. And yeah, until to the point where they just thrive. There's no trauma left and they design the life on their own terms, not being held back by anything. That's my business in a nutshell.
I love that. And there's so many things that have came up when you were just describing that, especially your stubbornness. And I love that you say that it to me is what I see and feel when you say that is literally what kept you going. Like
Yes.
you like, no, I'm not doing this. This is not it. And I wish here's me thinking 10 years like or 6 years ago, I wish I would have found you. I mean, I found you now. So that's, like I'm excited.
I
But
hear that way too often, unfortunately.
and I'm like, because like you're talking and I'm like, yes, like in a different way. Yes, I did. Yeah, like, yes. It's like I'm in a transition again for my business now. And it's like, yeah. And I'm always telling myself, like I don't know if you know much about human design, but like I'm a projector. So I can see the bigger picture, but I mean for other people, but for me, I'm like, I can't see, like I just can't see it, which is why too, like even us being guides, healers, like mentors, whatever you call yourself, I feel like we also need. Somebody told me they don't need coaching anymore. I was like, oh God, we got a different issue. But yeah, I love how you kind of said full circle moments, because I feel like I'm literally in this full circle moment, like right, like in a literally yesterday, like oh my God, I did all of this stuff. Because people will ask me a question, and it might have been something I learned or did 4 years ago or 2 years ago. But I still somewhat, like you said, the same thing. I didn't know what I was doing. And I feel like now people are like, you always just look like you know what you're doing. And I was like, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. And it's more, I just no idea. I mean, I do, and I am doing things, but it still feels like, what's going on? What's going on? I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, I definitely can resonate with that. And I know all the listeners can too, because they can probably vouch. Yeah, Lauren, she just has it all put together. But I don't. But I really don't. I mean, I make it, I guess
Well, maybe from your perspective, you don't, but for your clients, you
yeah,
probably do because energetically, as healers, as coaches, as guides, we have to be so many levels above energetically than our clients. Just one level above doesn't cut it.
right,
So they are energetically so far below you, you're pulling them up to your level.
right.
So for you, you may think like, well, I have no clue what I'm doing. But for them, you're like, oh my God, she is perfect because they are still getting to where you are at. And when they get to that level, you're far above again and can still help them guide even further up.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's actually a very good, that's a good way to put it and a good way to think about it. So thank you for that.
You're
So
welcome.
when you think about when you kind of like speak from the experience of like the unthinkable pain or like still finding your way through like this piece and your journey, like what was like a turning point in your healing of where you shifted from surviving to like truly living again?
That's a tough question. I don't know if I could pinpoint one moment. I
That was
mean,
a channeled question. I'm like, okay, spirit, give it to me.
all right.
Okay.
Well, let me start with where my healing journey really began, where I understood what I had to do.
Okay.
And that may lead me into when the next step came. It was two different men in my life who gave me important points that I needed in my healing journey. The first was a friend of mine. He was very spiritual in a time where I had no clue what that was. It was all fantasy to me, like witches and, like I wish I could like just make them numb or whatever, like magic and stuff when they try to punish someone. I was in that phase for a little bit in my
Yeah.
late teens.
Yeah.
Yes. So luckily not anymore. Anyways, he saw me sitting on the couch after I was dismissed by the psychologist, and he saw me sitting like a heap of misery, and he just looked at me with a stern face, hands on his hips, and saying, "Get the quartz crystal already." And I had no idea what he meant. So, but I did as he asked. He instructed me how to use it. And about 3 months later, I started to feel better. I started to feel a little lighter. I wasn't healed in any way, but the heaviness was gone. So everything that dragged me down was gone. Then my last boyfriend before I met my husband, when he broke up with me, he said that he was just married to a woman with mental issues. He didn't want to be dating one. Now, he didn't say that mean, he said that as a fact. And to be honest, I'm so grateful that he did because for the first time, I was actually sitting down and looking at myself and what he was talking about, like what was I doing in this relationship? And then I was looking back at all the other relationships and I saw a pattern. And I saw that I was sabotaging each and every relationship. So if you ever watched that movie, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, that was me.
Yeah.
Literally,
Same.
point for point.
Same.
Yes, that
No,
was
I get
me.
it. There's a lot of people I think that I think they get
Yeah.
it.
But the thing is, it helped me understand what I needed to do because right then and there, I made the decision I do not want to have another relationship until I'm the woman I like to be in a relationship.
Yes.
Now, when we talk from the spiritual aspect, I must have just made the exactly right decision because 3 months later, I met my husband. So, yes, and he came in and basically to help me heal
Yeah.
without knowing that this is what he was doing.
Yeah. Now, is this your current husband that you have now?
Yes.
I say this current husband, and I'm just thinking about the TikTok trend. It's like, here, my current husband. And the husbands are like, what do you mean your current husband? I'm your only husband. So that's why I'm saying that. I'm like, if your husband listens,
Yes. My
I
one
just
and
like that.
only.
I'm just clarifying. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you kind of speak a little bit to those women or maybe a past version of yourself that maybe currently in this moment that are like, all I keep this might be their belief, all I keep attracting is narcissistic men or people that abuse me. Can you kind of speak to that place, and from your perspective of their part of the responsibility, maybe if they're shifting of like, I can take responsibility. I mean, I know you have to get to that point of like, I'm responsible for this, but I
Mhm.
can't take responsibility for that. I'm not speaking to the
Yes.
people that are in victim, because they can't see it. They're just a victim
Yeah.
at that point. But those women that are, um specifically, speak to those women that are like, why does this keep happening? Like, can you speak to those women?
Mhm. Well, most of my clients have been in narcissistic relationships or are trying to get out of at the moment. So, yeah, that's a very common subject.
Yeah.
When we look at it from an energetic point of view,
Yeah.
you're vibrating in a specific way, whether you're traumatized or not. Trauma has a certain vibration, sickness has a certain vibration, health has a certain vibration. Now, when you're being traumatized, you are in a very low vibration. And so you're attracting people with that same vibration. And when you're trying to heal, usually it's a narcissist because they just love tearing you down even more.
Yeah.
That's how they find their power, because they have to take power away from other people so they can feel empowered, because they're so deeply traumatized they can't even see it. They're so terrified of looking in the mirror, they're loathing themselves looking in the mirror because they feel they're so ugly, they're so horrible. And instead of feeling into the feeling and trying to heal that, they're projecting it on other people. So, with that being said, when you're leaving a narcissistic relationship, you're still, I wouldn't say broken, I would say misaligned, because you have to get the vibration of healing back.
Yeah.
So, which means if you don't do the healing work before you go into a new relationship, you attract the same energy because this is what you know. It's like the devil you know and the devil you don't know.
Right.
Right? The devil you know is a narcissist. It sucks, but at least you know what you're dealing with until you don't, and they really drag you down even more. Right? Then there is this hope part because every narcissist is like playing this knight in shining armor that is coming to rescue you. And then once you're hooked in, then they flip the switch. So even when you're completely healed and you're unaware of what that man is doing, you can be dragged back down to the victim of narcissism. And coming back from that is not easy, but you already have more knowledge and you can do it a little faster than others who haven't had a chance yet. So when you're leaving a narcissistic relationship, you need to heal. You need to start releasing everything that's holding you back from raising your vibration, because once your vibration is higher, you meet people in that vibrational level. So they have already done some healing, so the relationships are less rocky. And then when you heal even more, and you get even higher, you meet people who have healed. And then it's like empowered relationships, like true partners. It's all about the vibration within you. So healing, healing, healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. I often look back on my own like experience in my relationship, and I still feel like, now I'm in a healthy relationship, but like, same thing for me. My ex-husband was very narcissistic. However, I even take so much responsibility that I turned into him. Like, at the point that I was like, who am I? So then I'm like in this delusional, I don't even have like asked, I don't even know what was happening. And then I realized, like, some of the traits that I, got from my parents that, were very narcissistic. And I feel like even now, even more now ever, people just throw around that word like it's nothing. And
Mm.
here's me, I guess it's been, God, how long have I been divorced? Probably like 6 years, God, 7 years separated for something like that. I went on my healing journey, like truly healing, like looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, about 7 years ago. So I want to say like, I don't know, like it was like probably a year into that, I started like, of course it started coming over my social media. I'm like, what's a narcissist? What's that? What's gaslighting? What's this? What's that? What's boundary? Like had no idea what any of this was.
Mhm.
And I was like, this describes my whole life. Like, oh my God. Like, but then I started blaming everybody. I blamed my parents. I blamed the blame game. It was his fault that I was like this. It was my trauma. It was all of this stuff. And then I was so excluded. The universe was like, sit your ass down by yourself. And at this point, I had my daughter. So she was like 3 months old, and I like that was the reason why I left initially. Like, I'm not doing this. Like something was just like in me. I'm not doing this. I'm not repeating this stuff again. Like I'm not. There's just no way I'm okay with this. So for the longest time, I used her as my why until I realized I was the why. So like that kind of shifted for me too. And I'm sure you hear about this all the time with your own clients too. It was just like, but anyway, getting back to what I was saying, like, took a left turn there, was I hear a lot, and I'm part of this too, that it's like it never really, that feeling never really goes away. Like it's there, and like I kind of look at it like I'm like a going back into like a filing cabinet, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that, but not really like letting it drive my life anymore. So
Mhm.
how would you, like, if somebody is in this feeling, or like what would you kind of guide them through, or like look deeper in? Because I'm always like, oh, I love doing shadow work. I'm like, oh yay. I don't Before I was like, oh God, we're not doing that. So it was like a
Mhm.
different mindset of like excited to understand a deeper level to that.
Well, first of all, when I work with a client who is in a narcissistic relationship or was, I'm looking at the ancestral line.
Okay.
Because yes, we're attracted to narcissists because we have been dealing with this for most of our lives. So usually it's a parent. So, and
Yeah.
if it's a parent, how did a parent become a narcissist? So we go deeper to grandparents. How are the grandparents? And then the great grandparents. And after that, they have no clue what else. But this is already a pattern. So this is a pattern of repetition. So, and
Wow.
then you are the first one in the family who is actually healing from that narcissism. But from the ancestral line, the trauma is still attached to you. So then I go into the Akashic records and I look for the place of origin. Where was the first generation where this narcissism happened and has been going on since it came to you and inadvertently to your daughter? So then we release that in the Akashic records, release you from that and your whole family line going backwards and forward, which means if you release that within yourself, your daughter will not have to go through it because you're healing it for her.
Right.
So if it's like something that if we have really worked for, I don't know, 6 months to a year on the same issue with narcissism, and we have cleared everything that could be, they're thriving, they're doing great, but there is still this fear that something is coming back or that they're being dragged down again or anything, then ancestral line. Usually I do that sooner than 6 to 12 months, but
Okay. I'm like,
it
God, oh
really
my
depends.
God.
No, no,
6 months. I'm
no,
like,
no,
oh God. 6 days,
no,
please.
no.
I'm kidding.
Yes, but I look in the ancestral line because
Yeah.
usually if something happened from parents, then grandparents, great grandparents, that's a pattern. And
Yeah.
patterns mean there is a place of origin. And so
Yeah.
I figured this out and release them from that. So that energy is gone then. And then there's more freedom coming and of course more emotional hangovers, which means the energy that we released had to come up and then they're sitting there for days feeling like crap and bawling their eyes out. But it's just the energy that's leaving. That was anchored in the body and it has to get out somehow. And I call that the emotional hangover because it
Yeah.
just really feels like one.
Wow, that explains my last 2 months. Not even realizing, again, here I am, beginning of our conversation. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's happening. I don't know what's going on. I mean, like, my spirit, obviously, my higher self does. I'm not listening to her like sometimes, and like I was just I heard ancestral trauma, and that's why I was like, I have to ask her this question because you're the expert here.
Mhm.
I'm like, I need to know. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's what's been going on the last couple months. I think for a lot of us, I should say, even if you don't know, that's probably what's happening. Yeah.
Probably, yes.
So now let's talk a little bit about in the ancestral trauma. So like
Mhm.
how do you begin to like identify where that when you said that like that pain or that pattern I should say is carrying that actually is not yours and you've just you inherited from your lineage, like
Mhm.
where how do you know and where do you begin to identify that?
Well, it usually comes up through conversations.
Okay.
It's like we're talking about different issues and they get their aha moments because I channel and tell them exactly what I need to hear. And they say, oh, okay, now that makes sense. Just like you right now. It just made sense. So,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's like there's still this heaviness. And then, like, I have this heaviness in the chest or in the solar plexus area. That's where our chi is, the path of our soul. So, basically, that's where we usually feel when something's off. And I was like, okay. Then we looked a little deeper. So then I asked them questions about their family. So how was your upbringing? How was your mother's or your father's upbringing to get like a baseline? So, and then we follow where it leads us. So if the mother usually had like a difficult childhood, the father wasn't that great either. And so on and so forth. And some aunts and uncles maybe. And I was like, okay, so this seems like a family issue. So I was like, okay, how are the grandparents? If they still know. And at that point, we can already tell there is something going on that's going deeper. So then I take my pendulum and I go into the Akashic records and I just ask. I just
Yeah.
ask if there has been trauma or an issue. If we already have a name for that trauma, then I ask specifically for that. And then I just tell me yes, no, and when it was, how it happened. And then I just ask if we can release it. And if they say yes, then we release it.
I love that.
And then usually a couple days later, they start to notice a shift. Some feel it right away. It's always amazing to see when they can feel it in the moment as it's being released, and others just need a couple days longer, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah. I love, love, love doing Akashic. Here's me like when I was doing my like, I'm gonna teach all myself, like that moment you're like, I could do this all myself. And then you're like, no, you can't. So when I read the first book I read on the Akashic Records, I was like, oh my goodness, I can heal myself. I was just, it's just funny how, but I love doing ancestral work, love doing all of that. Cause the one
Mm,
thing that really stand out to me when I was listening to you was just ask. Like, I think all of us just forget to ask, and it doesn't matter.
mhm.
You could be doing whatever, and it's like I just need to remember to ask. If it's asking for help, I was on a group call yesterday with my mentor, and I know a lot about angels, I know a lot about spirit guides, I know a lot about all that. But the one thing I learned yesterday was apparently there's unemployed spirit guides. So you can ask for them, like meaning that's what she called them. I think that's what she said that her mentor called them. But there are spirit guides that either finish their mission or they're new and they just need work. So I'm like, that means I can sit here and be like, I need you right now. Right now. I need like it's like wild. I was like, oh, they're gonna get tired of me. They're gonna get really tired of me. So let's
Oh,
kind of
I don't think so.
yeah. It's like if you could only be on Earth again. I think you forget how hard it is. um, so let's like kind of switch gears a little bit and kind of talk a little bit about your healing method, and then I want to hear all about your book as well. So when you developed these methods, like the different traditional, like these are different traditional healing approaches, but also like Reiki, how do you kind of support your clients in healing both personal and ancestral layers of trauma through your system that you created?
Well, with my clients, I do work one on one
Okay.
simply because everybody's different. So I could not create a system that would work for everybody because we're all individuals. And when it comes to trauma healing, we're all in different levels. So it would be very difficult to create like a group program. So I'm not even trying.
Yeah.
So yeah, it depends where they're at in their story, in their journey. Usually I always offer a free consultation. So we discuss what issues they are. I mean, I don't even have to ask, they just start and just tell me everything that's going on before I even said hello, most times.
You're like, she's gonna listen to
It's
me.
nice. I like it.
Yeah, yeah,
I like this connection that they already are forming. That's so important to have this connection.
100%.
And then, depending on how deep their trauma still is, we will determine where to start. If they're really still stuck in deep trauma or they have been suppressing for decades and suddenly it all came rushing to the surface, then of course we start with deep trauma healing. I use a modality called traumatic incident reduction, or TIR, which is the most amazing modality no one has ever heard of.
I was gonna say, you just said something I never heard of before, so I'm like,
Exactly.
wait, I never heard of that before. So you'll have to
Well,
explain it too.
it's kind of interesting. TIR and EMDR were created around the same time, but EMDR got all the funding and TIR got nothing. So if you want to check it out, it's tira.org. That's their website. And I love this modality. It's a little bit like coaching in the way that you're asking questions. But the interesting thing is, each question is asked repeatedly until my client says, well, nothing else comes up. And this brings mini triggers to the surface. So let's say, for example, if I would say concerning tree, is there anything that has been suppressed? So, and then you tell me what pops into your head. And this is like the first trigger that's leaving. Then I ask the question again, and the next trigger is coming up. You talk about it and it's leaving. And then the next trigger is coming up. You talk about it and it's leaving. So, and after the third or fourth repetition, usually something comes up where they're saying, oh, I completely forgot about that. Because that was like pushed down by every trigger that came after. So we're basically reverse engineering instead of getting all the triggers in, we're getting them all out in the way they came in. So, and only when we're finished with the questions, there are 20 questions. Usually we don't need all 20, simply because at some point there is not much more information that could come out. And then we go into the actual trauma. And then I ask them to repeatedly tell me, okay, what happened? What happened? What happened? At some point they want to strangle me because they have to repeat it another time. But that's okay because the last trigger is coming out. And after that, their trauma feels like the same as if I would say I have wooden floors. Who cares if I have wooden floors? And the
Right.
trauma will become just like that. Who cares? It will become as insignificant as what you had for lunch a couple days ago.
Okay. Okay.
So,
I think okay. So I think I guess somebody probably adapted this to be their own method, but I have heard of that. Somebody that I know, mutually, she calls it somatic soul renewal. And that's kind of like what she was explaining. So I have heard of that. It's just not.
okay. So, yeah. So
Okay.
she changed it a little bit for herself, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I
Right.
mean,
So just,
I think it's very powerful. Like, especially when you talk to somebody, like you talk to somebody and you can see that they're triggered and you're like, oh, shouldn't say that again. I mean, if it's just in a general conversation, and I feel like I do that a lot, but my intention is never to trigger people. So like I know that my intention is just, I'm simply curious to ask, like, if I'm just in normal conversation, I'm not talking about client sessions. And I started to have this belief a couple years ago that like I shouldn't talk because every time I talk, I trigger people. So then I had to kind of work through that too, because then I was taking everything so personally. And I feel
mhm,
like once you realize, like what you just explained, you realize that, I mean, now I know that it has nothing to do with me and it has everything to do with them. And
mhm.
it's not a reflection on me, but I feel like that thought pattern and that process is hard. I mean, sometimes it's still hard because you don't ever really want to hurt somebody or like make them feel pain. But at the same time, you're like, that's not my responsibility. you know?
True. But then again, when you don't want to trigger people, don't want to hurt them, you're coming from perspective of trauma.
Right.
I'm coming from the perspective of healing, saying, okay, let's trigger the shit out of you so we can get rid of this.
Right.
Because it's my job to trigger people so the trigger can come up, we release it, and it's gone. It's not coming back.
Yeah, that's a good statement. Now, is this just for your clients or this is just with everybody? Do you have this mindset with
No, this is for the clients that need it. So this will be the first step. If they're really struggling with deep trauma, we start there.
okay.
So and then we go into coaching. So I call this trauma Reiki because I use Reiki and coaching together. So
Okay.
that's where we go into the trauma that's not so deep that we can release through just talking about it and releasing the energy. Because what we have to understand is that every time a trigger comes up, it comes up with a ton of energy.
Hmm.
And the trigger is only so hard because of the amount of energy that's coming with it. So if you're releasing the energy while your client is talking about the trigger, what's going on, what they're seeing, you're releasing the force of the trigger for them. So it's like you're pulling on two sides, and
Right.
this releases the trigger so fast. I get people out of a PTSD attack in my sessions when like something really unexpected and really powerful is coming up, releasing it with Reiki. They can breathe again, they can talk about it. It's all right. It may not be completely released. Usually PTSD, I need about 4 to 5 sessions to fully release it, like every aspect of it, but it's so powerful to combine those two methods.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I use the shaman. I usually use, well, I use three different ones. So like theta Reiki, just regular Reiki, or I use the shamanic healing. Whatever, it's all personalized, same thing, very
Mhm.
personalized to them, that how it works, like how it works. But yeah,
Right.
it's definitely, I definitely, I'm definitely noticing more and more when somebody with PTSD, it's could take a couple months. Like it could take, if they have
Mhm.
weekly, I don't ever want to do more than weekly sessions. We don't need to do twice weekly. That's not, like, give your body a break. But yeah, I'm noticing more and more the more sessions I do it that way. It's like a couple months. Even from, I mean, I'm just going back from my experience too. It took me a couple months to release one of that area. So,
Mhm.
I'm just assuming that, they also need, and you just clarified it because you said the same thing.
Well, what I've learned with especially PTSD is that even if they leave the session and they feel balanced and neutral, their mind is still going, they're processing. And so they're processing themselves back into a huge trigger.
Yes.
And we can't wait a week and let this fester for a week. They will explode. So then we have another session to release even more. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain to them, well, don't go down the rabbit hole, give your body a break. Because releasing the energy and releasing the trigger and going through it and seeing it, this is takes a lot of strain on your body. I mean, I have some clients who release energy and it's so painful. Like it starts in the abdomen, it goes into the chest, then they can't breathe in their throat. Sometimes people can't talk for a while. Then it goes in the head and a major headache. Like I can't pull out the energy as fast as it's trying to move up and out.
Right.
So, and this is a huge strain on the body. And if the mind doesn't stop, so you have to redirect, which means I teach my clients how to redirect. Like, let's say, singing, dancing, going for a walk, like using at least three senses all together to keep your mind busy and not able to go back down the rabbit hole so that the body can relax a little bit. But yeah, sometimes I do have 2 or 3 sessions with my clients in a week if it's necessary. And then it's just only weekly or bi-monthly. It fluctuates.
Yeah. It's different for everybody. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Um, yeah, no, that definitely, especially if you're speaking about like deep trauma that's moving through the body, like if it's wherever it is, I feel like for me personally, mine was a lot of it in my throat of like, be quiet,
Mhm.
all that stuff, but also some in my sacral too, and my hips. Like for the longest time, I've always had hip problem, back problems. And, here I'm like, why do I have hip problem? Don't give me a spiritual definition. I don't want to, it's not because of whatever. But then I'm really realizing that, releasing somatically, releasing that too, like helps. And,
Mhm.
doing my own stuff, like I'm sure
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
but I feel like I'm always like that mirror to maybe like what my clients are going through, or uh, a similar experience of like what they could possibly go. Like it's literally just a mirror
Mhm.
to what I can give advice, like you said earlier about, that vibration. It's like very similar, but it's like a past experience. So yeah,
Mhm.
I
Right.
I know you love the work that you do. That's why I'm like, when when I knew that I was recording you, I was like, oh, I shouldn't say I love talking about trauma, but I do in a way that it's like solutions. This is what it is. This is how, I mean, like just by talking to you, I've learned so much. So thank you. Thank you for being here with
Okay.
us.
So happy I am. Well, think about pain. Pain can also be ancestral.
Yes. Yeah. That is what was brought to my awareness 6 months. Nah, I can't, 6 months, maybe a year ago. And I kept forgetting about it. So I like worked on it and then like I didn't feel it anymore. So I'm like, oh, it's gone. But it's like coming back up.
Mhm.
Probably the last couple of months that it's coming back up again. So I'm like, oh, I get to go back into the ancestral healing, which is probably why I was asking you so many questions because I think there's some of them are for me too.
Probably. Well, I did have a client once for an ancestral reading, and she had pain in the middle of her back, and she had it since forever. And she was like, the doctors, they don't see anything wrong. There is nothing
Yeah.
that could be. So when I asked her, well, what about your family? Well, my mother had it, my grandmother too. And I was like, well, that's a pattern. So we went on the ancestral line and we looked, and about, was it 10 or 15 generations past, there was an abusive husband.
Mm.
And he was pushing his wife down to the floor and had his boot on her back to keep her down. That was the image that I got. And
Oh,
that was never healed in the ancestral line. So that trauma was the back pain that all the women going forward were experiencing at one point in their lives. And we released it. 3 days later, she messaged me, back pain is gone.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how powerful that work in the Akashic Records really is. Because you can't go back to where it happened and tell that guy, hey, stop it. But the energetic residue you can release. That was never healed. The trauma that was never healed. Whether it was physical or mental, emotionally, is still there and is being carried down to that one ancestor who's ready to heal that.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That was kind of like how one of the ancestral healing sessions that I had done, like I knew immediately like this side of my body would hurt. So I did it, I know that I believe in all of everything that you're saying and I know it works because it happened that every time I would get stressed out or something really big in my life would happen, like this whole side of my body to the point, and I like right here, and I would touch, and it would hurt so bad. And I'm just
Mm,
going back through all of this. It was all related to like ancestral stuff, like, or like hunched over, like when I'm trying to protect my heart, not even subconsciously realizing that like I'm hunched over or like my posture or something. Because like my heart, I'm trying to protect my heart if I feel, whatever the case is, if I feel like unsafe or something. And like realizing that, so I'm carrying like when people, when people don't realize that, and I don't think I didn't have this awareness a couple years ago either, but you know, we're carrying in our DNA a line of whatever we're getting from our ancestors, both sides, feminine and masculine. So it was very powerful to be walked and guided through that session because I
mm,
don't feel that anymore. Like I just don't. I mean, I have now it's my hips. So maybe I need to come work with you because I'm tired of my hips hurting and my back hurting. So I'm sure there's something else there, but it's just so eye opening to realize that like I can release this. It doesn't have to stay
mhm.
in my body. Me thinking I have to go do more yoga. I mean that's great, but at the same time, I don't. I think it's more of a deeper level, definitely. So you yogis out there that are listening, it could just mean that you need to go work with Sandra because maybe if yoga is not working for you, it's something deeper.
Very
um,
possible.
yes, yeah. So to kind of tell us a little bit about your book. Is your book out? Is it, when will it be out? How can people find it? What it is about? I want to know all the things about your book.
Okay. Well, one book is out. The second one will be out by
Okay.
December,
Okay.
so before Christmas. So the first one is the first book of a trilogy.
Okay.
It's called trilogy is called Journey to Yourself. So the whole journey from being deeply traumatized to being your true authentic self. That's going to be 3 books. The first one is out. It's called Journey to Yourself: How to Heal from Trauma, written by someone who did. So in this book, I basically take the mystery out of trauma. we're so afraid of it because we don't know what it means. So I basically, yeah, take the fear factor out, explain those different things that we do because of trauma, why we have that. I have exercises, room for notes, I have journaling techniques. So all to really help a person start their own healing journey. And what I've heard a lot from people who read my book was that it's growing with you. Meaning when you start reading it, only certain aspects of the book will resonate with you. Then you start the healing journey. It will automatically happen as soon as you start reading because you have one aha moment after another, and the aha moments is what make you heal. As soon as you have an aha moment, you're releasing something that was blocking you before because now you understand it. And so now it's moving out of your system. Then 6 months later or a year later, you read it again. And then there are other aspects of the book that resonate with you because you have grown, you have evolved, you have started to heal. So, and this is by design because I don't like this question, now what? I really don't.
Yeah.
So, and this book is supposed to give you all the answers you need on your healing journey up to a certain point. Then the next book is going to be how to unbecome who you were taught to be. So all the limiting beliefs and the conditioned behavior, what society put on you, what your family put on you, all those wise words that are all horrible when you think about it, and all keep you stuck in a life that you don't want, how to release those. That is going to be the next one. And the third one, of course, how to really bring it all together and get to your true authentic self, who you really are without anything holding you back. Now, the book that is coming out in December is called Trauma Reiki, Awaken the Healer Within. Basically, what this means is well, in a way, it's the introduction to the Trauma Reiki certification course that I built because it helps you understand who you are, truly are, what is holding you back, why you can't access the healer within, because we all have that. We all have the healer within, we all have this knowledge inside, but we can't access it because we're traumatized. So all the trauma work that I'm doing explained why I'm doing this, what my clients get out of it, because you may be completely stuck in 3D and believe in nothing and think this is life. And at the end of it, you're so highly spiritual simply because your spirituality was at free, because we released that through trauma healing. We're all sensitive to energy. All of us, whether we believe in energy or not, we're all sensitive to it. And this is what I'm trying to explain in my book, guide you how to get there so you can tap into your healer within and your Christ consciousness, because both is connected.
Yeah.
And then how you can do the work I do. Because this is how we're going to shift the planet, by healing humanity, by bringing humanity back to who they really are, what we have forgotten, what we were made to believe. We were disconnected from our divine source, but we were only disconnected. It's still there. We just have to reconnect. And that's what I'm trying to bring across with my book. Of course, go into detail about how I work and, of course, what the course will bring. So, how I'm teaching this. And I'm super excited about it.
I know. So there's 3 books. So you have 3 books, and this will be a 4th book teaching um, the trauma Reiki. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, one book is out, 2 are still being written from the trilogy. So
Okay.
technically, Trauma Reiki is my second one that is going
Oh,
to be
okay.
out.
Okay. Okay.
So
And you
I'm
have
working a little, here and there. So wherever I feel energetically guided.
Oh,
So it
okay.
looks like a little chaos, but
No, that's okay.
it's not.
It's organized chaos, as I say.
Yes,
Like it's
exactly.
going to eventually, yeah, I love that. I'll make sure also that your link is, so if you're listening to this might be out by the time that the book is out, or if it's not, when we're recording this, I'll make sure that you can find her link below if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on any of your podcast platforms. So you can check that out. And then also, I'll make sure your first book, they can also
Thank you.
I can talk about this all day, but I feel like we need to, I should probably wrap this up. This is what happens when two intuitive people get together. So talking.
I know. I know exactly what you mean.
It's like 3 hours, and it's like this conversation could be for 3 hours. um,
Easily.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, but I want to value your time and the listeners' time. So before we wrap up, if for anybody that is listening that might feel like broken or stuck or hopeless, what would you want them to know today about the possibilities of feeling full of healing and reclaiming their life?
Well, trauma is not a life sentence. Everything you need to heal, you have already within you. You just have to tap into that. I know it's terrifying. And I know you probably would love to do anything but that, but it's so worth it. You have no idea how worth it is because right now you're stuck in trauma, and wherever you are, you can't even see that there is something else out there. So you have to have a little faith and take it one step at a time. And don't forget to look where you used to be and where you are now. And just imagine 2 years from now, if you would look back to where you used to be now and where you're going to be, it's going to be two different worlds if you start to be brave and start your healing journey one day at a time.
Love that. Love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode with Sandra. And thank you so much for listening to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. Join me inside the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood. It's our community for spiritual entrepreneurs rising into purpose. You can connect with me on Instagram at the Mermaid Light or the link in the Sisterhood below in the show notes. And if you feel that this episode was something that resonated with you and you want to connect more with Sandra, make sure you do that. All of her links will be below, like I said earlier, in the description box. Or if you're watching this over on YouTube, you will have all of her links to connect with her. Make sure you don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with somebody that you feel that would gain knowledge from listening. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week.